friends, Coach Mohika here. Welcome to another week of quarantine. And this week for your lessons, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be calculating slope and identifying slope in 3 different forms. Your first form is going to be from a graph, then a slope-intercept equation, and then lastly a standard form equation. If you're in my class, Coach Deal's class, or Coach Hartlub's class, you're able to use this video for all of them. And right now I'm going to go ahead and teach you each one of those. So here you go, guys. Okay, so first up on the screen, you can see that we are going to be looking at an equation that is in a graph. Okay, so I'm going to start at this lower point right here. When I go from this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rise over run method. First, going to look at this line and notice that it is a positive line, because if I look at it from left to right, it is increasing. So when I say rise over run, I'm going to make those little humps up to the next point. So if you notice, I rose 4. So I'm going to go ahead and write a 4 over here. And remember, our rise is always going to be on the top of the fraction line. Then my run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I ran 6. So simply stated right here, I have a slope of 4 over 6. But we do have to simplify this by dividing the top and the bottom by 2 because they are both divisible by 2. So I will have 2/3 as my slope. So there you go for a positive graph. Let's go ahead and look at a negative graph now. If you look at this negative graph, I didn't actually give myself points already. So first off, what I want to do is I want to identify 2 points. I have a point there and I have a point right here. Okay, so when I look at these 2 points, I'm going to do the same concept. It's going to be a rise over run. But if you notice, this graph is now decreasing when I look at it from left to right. So right off the bat, I know it's going to be a negative graph or a negative slope. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my lines already. So I'm going to start at this bottom point again, and I'm going to see how many I rise. If you notice, I rise 4. So I'm going to put that 4 as the top because it's always my rise over my run. Then I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, and I have a run of 3. So my slope for this one is going to be -4/3. Nice and simple, identifying it from a graph. Hopefully you understand that. Next one, let's go ahead and look at slope-intercept form. In class, you have all learned about slope-intercept form and how we use slope-intercept form. Easiest thing to look at is this m value right here. M value is always your slope. So whenever you're determining slope from a slope-intercept form equation, you're just looking at that value in front of x. So on my 2 examples here, on my first one, I have a value in front of x that is simply 3. So my slope, nice and easy, I will just write that as 3. On the bottom one, I have a slope value or a value in front of x that is -1/3. Notice how I take that negative sign. So this negative sign is also going to go with the slope. So it'll be a -1/3 for the bottom one and a +3 for the top one. Okay, the last one that I'm going to be teaching y'all is standard form. We used to do this on the calculator, but unfortunately we're not able to use the calculators right now, and we lost a few calculator functions. So I'm going to teach y'all how to do this from the equation. So what we care about is this a value and this b value. So I'm going to go ahead and cross out this c value because we don't even care about it. I don't need it there. I don't want it there to confuse me. So I'm going to cross them all out on each of my examples as well. Okay, this value is not important to us. We don't need this in order to determine our slope. Okay, so when I say this a value and this b value, what I mean by that is I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them into a fraction form. So I'm always going to take the opposite, or in this case what we would say is the negative a value over the b value. Okay, so when I do this, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and underline my a value and my b value. And like I said, I was going to take that negative a value. So in this case, in this problem, it's going to be a -4. And then my b value is a 3. So then my slope for this first problem is going to be -4/3. Let's look at this next one. I don't have a number in front of x, but you've learned in class there's always a 1 in front of x. And then my next b value is going to be -2. So if you remember, that a value, I have to take the negative form of that a value. So the negative form of 1 is obviously going to be a -1. So I'm going to write out -1. and I'm going to put that over -2. Okay, but hopefully you all remember that when you have a negative over a negative, that's going to cancel each other out, and we're going to come out with a slope of 1/2. So my slope for my second equation is going to be 1/2. Okay, and then let's do this last one. My A value, I have an A value of -6, and I have a B value of +2. Okay, so let's talk about that -6. First off, remember, I'm always going to start off with a negative sign because I have to do my -A. So let's go ahead and write it like that. So I have a negative, and then I have my -6 because that was my A value, over my B value, which is a +2. Okay, so when I have a negative and a negative, that's actually going to become a positive. So I'm going to go ahead and put this as 6/2. But I know some of you are looking at this and you're like, hey, Miss Mojica, you need to simplify that. So I am going to simplify that. And when I simplify this, I have 6 divided by 2 is going to come out to 3. So on my last equation, I'm going to have a slope of 3. All right, guys, hopefully you learned everything that you need for this week's assignments. Make sure to do all those quizzes. Make sure to check your Canvas. We miss you all so much. And always remember, it's a great day to be a Mustang. Have a great day, guys.